What if everything you think you know about space is a carefully constructed lie? This may be the most important question you will hear today. For decades, NASA has been seen as the main source of knowledge about the universe, the guardian of science, discoveries, and missions that supposedly took man to the moon. But what if behind this image of transparency and technology, there is something much darker? Something they don't want you to find out. In recent years, classified documents, testimonies from former military personnel, and leaked images have begun to suggest a truth that seems straight out of a science fiction film: the existence of a secret military base in space. We're not talking about fiction, we're talking about reports. Coordinates erased from satellite maps and mysterious projects that simply disappeared from NASA's official records. Why do some space broadcasts abruptly cut off live? There are entire areas of Earth's orbit where the International Space Station's cameras are simply off. What is the true purpose of space missions that have never been revealed to the public? The word secret has never felt so real. Unidentified sources mention a supposed armed installation floating outside the Earth, invisible to the eyes of the population, but constantly monitored by agencies such as the NSA and the United States Department of Defense itself, a base that, according to theories, may be equipped with advanced technology, perhaps even of non-terrestrial origin. NASA itself has been accused of manipulating images, hiding information in public reports, and even silencing professionals who dare to ask too many questions. There is a pattern of silence, a wall of censorship that only reinforces doubt. What are they trying to hide from us? This video is a warning, an investigation, an invitation for you to open your eyes. Because the clues are everywhere. In declassified files, in transmission failures, in forgotten testimonies, ... And maybe, just maybe, what we're about to reveal will completely change the way you see space, ... And that's precisely why you need to watch this video until the end. What we're about to show you here may never have been revealed to the general public. And it's no coincidence. Every omitted detail, every cut image, every transmission that mysteriously drops seems to follow a pattern of concealment. Why isn't this information in the news? Why, even with billions invested in space missions, are there records of places and objects that NASA simply refuses to talk about? Some say it is for national security. Others believe that the truth would simply be acceptable to humanity. The fact is that you have the right to know what's really going on above our heads. We cannot continue accepting ready-made truths, packaged and delivered without question. There is a very fine line between protection and manipulation, and perhaps NASA is dancing exactly on it. And if there really is a secret military base in space, who is there? What is being done? Were they preparing defenses against an unknown threat? Or perhaps experimenting with technologies so advanced that we can't even understand them? Official silence only fuels the mystery, and each new leak brings us closer to the truth. Now, an important request. If you value content that goes beyond the surface and investigates what no one wants to show, leave a like on this video. This shows YouTube that this subject deserves to be seen by more people. And if you're new here, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. Because in the next few minutes, let's delve into secret documents, cryptic testimonies, and records that have been censored for years. You are about to enter territory where few dare tread. And from here, there's no turning back. The space race, which was once a chapter of the Cold War, has now intensified again. But this time, with new protagonists, new intentions, and perhaps ... new secrets. The United States, China, Russia, India, and even billionaires like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are investing untold fortunes in projects that, on the surface, appear aimed at the peaceful exploration of the cosmos. But when we look behind the scenes, when we analyze the real data, the secret contracts, the movements of unidentified satellites, and the areas of space that remain systematically hidden from the public. We realize that there is something much bigger at play. This new era of space exploration isn't just about science. It's about control, orbital dominance, and militarization of space. Recent reports, many of them public but ignored by the traditional media, show that several powers are putting into orbit satellites capable of not only monitoring, but also attacking and disabling structures of other nations. And it is in this tense scenario where the silent war takes place above our heads. That theories about the existence of a secret military base outside of Earth are gaining more and more strength and relevance. There are mission logs that simply disappeared without explanation. Experimental ships that went up and didn't come back. Equipment that has disappeared from radars, supposedly deactivated, but which continues to emit signals that some independent stations have already captured, and which, strangely, coincide with areas where no satellite should be. NASA itself, often involved in these experimental launches, rarely discloses the actual destination of these missions. Instead, we receive vague communications full of technical terms, and an avalanche of silence when deeper questions arise. And make no mistake, these operations are not just in Earth orbit. There are suspicions that support bases are being established on the Moon, not by chance, the sudden interest of space agencies in returning to the satellite, with a rush and resources never seen before. In fact, there are those who say that the famous dark side of the Moon is where the infrastructure is being installed. A place without direct contact with Earth, free from signal interference, ideal for secret operations, testing space, weapons, and who knows, even contact with life forms that officially do not exist. Elon Musk has already publicly declared that the militarization of space is inevitable. Jeff Bezos, in turn, stated that it is necessary to protect orbital assets. But what type of protection does this entire structure require? Are they just guarding against enemies on Earth? Or are they preparing for something that we, mere spectators down here, can't even imagine? And we're not just talking about rumors. Agencies such as the United States Space Force, officially created in 2019, have the explicit mission of security and space dominance. That's right, security and dominance. Two terms that, when applied to outer space, automatically raise dangerous questions. What exactly needs to be mastered out there? What threats justify billions in weapons that have not even been officially presented to the population? Some insiders and former employees of space agencies claim that there is, indeed, a secret military structure that orbits the Earth, a kind of advanced station, not listed in the official NASA or ISS catalogs, but which can be observed briefly in certain live broadcasts before the image cuts out or a technical failure suddenly occurs. And it's always the same way. When a strange object appears, or when the International Space Station changes its rotation, visual distortions, interference, and the infamous "we lost" signal appear. Coincidence? Perhaps, but it's hard to believe that, with billions in cutting-edge technology, NASA continues to suffer transmission failures at precisely the most critical moments. And that is why, questioning whether there is a secret military base in space, it's not just feeding a conspiracy theory, it's raising a legitimate doubt based on real signs, official records, and carefully omitted events. And have you ever stopped to think about why this information isn't featured in the 8 o'clock newspaper? Why don't we see experts debating this type of content in major media outlets? The answer may lie in exactly what we are trying to bring to light. This kind of truth is uncomfortable. This type of truth doesn't sell, and more than that, it's not appropriate. There is a silent pact, a greater gear that moves the media, governments, and even agencies that call themselves scientific. And we are here to break this cycle. Because, in the end, what is at stake is not just whether or not there is a secret military base in space. It's understanding why they are hiding it. It's questioning what else is being swept under the cosmic rug. And above all, it is about recovering the right to question. Because doubt is the first step to freedom. If you've come this far, it's because you feel like something is wrong. You also see the gaps, the forced coincidences, the uncomfortable silences. And that's precisely why this content needs to be shared, so that more people begin to see what is being hidden right before our eyes, or rather, above our heads. Enjoy and comment below, what do you think they are hiding from us? Just write this: they are hiding something above us. This will show that you are with us in this investigation. And if you want to go even further, also comment, I want to know what NASA is hiding. This helps spread this video, and most importantly, it helps bring more people to this conversation that the system wants to silence. But after all, where did this controversial theory about a secret military base outside of Earth come from? Where did the clues, the reports, the evidence that support this idea that at first glance seems like something out of a science fiction script come from? The most disturbing thing is that none of this was born out of mere speculation. There are records, there are documents, there are leaks, and they all point in the same direction. There is something orbiting above us that shouldn't be there, or, at least, something that NASA and other space agencies have never officially admitted. It all started with mysterious screenshots taken by enthusiasts and independent observers who follow live broadcasts from the International Space Station. At certain moments, for fractions of a second, strange structures appear on the horizon, geometric shapes that do not resemble common satellites. Then, as if someone noticed the error, the video suddenly crashes. NASA, when questioned, alleges solar interference, technical failures, or simple coincidence. But these failures always occur at the most curious moments. Isn't it strange? In addition, we have declassified documents, pages and pages of technical reports that, though filled with scientific terms and codes, contain recurring mentions of unidentified objects in orbit, unscheduled route changes and missions, and records of stationary structures at altitudes where no official equipment was launched. These are details hidden between paragraphs, which escape the inattentive eye, but which become striking when connected into a larger pattern. And this pattern points to an undeclared, possibly military, presence in the outer layers of Earth's orbit. And how can you ignore the testimonials? Former NASA employees, engineers who worked on defense contracts linked to space exploration, high-ranking military personnel. They all have something in common. They know more than they can say. Many remained silent out of fear. Others were silenced. But some, driven by conscience or tiredness, began to speak, even if anonymously. And what they say is disturbing. One of them reported that he saw a structure larger than any satellite ever launched, completely black, without markings, positioned in an orbital shadow zone. He stated that his access to the project was revoked shortly after he questioned it with his superiors. Another report describes what appeared to be an artificial station capable of moving in absolute silence, without emitting thermal trails or visible signals to conventional radars. This raises a delicate question. What kind of technology are we dealing with here? Are we just talking about a top-secret military project or something even more advanced, possibly with technologies that didn't originate on Earth? And it doesn't stop there. Several NASA missions that cost billions of dollars, were terminated abruptly, without clear explanation. Probes that lost contact when approaching certain regions of space. Modules that disappeared shortly after entering specific areas of the lunar orbit. Space drones that never emitted a signal again. Coincidence is repeated so many times that it ceases to be a coincidence. And the lack of answers from NASA only reinforces the feeling that there is a big puzzle being put together far from the public eye. When asked about these anomalies, the default response is always evasive. We are investigating. There are no signs of abnormal activity. The data was inconclusive. But why so much effort in denying what seems to be before our eyes? Why am I so afraid to admit that maybe, just maybe, there is something more up there? An emblematic case occurred in 2016 when a transmission from the space station was cut off immediately after the appearance of a triangular-shaped metallic object. The video went viral before it could be removed and has since become a centerpiece. For proponents of the hidden base theory, the image showed something slowly approaching the ISS's field of vision. It wasn't a meteor. It wasn't an ordinary satellite. It was something different, strangely angular, motionless for seconds. As if observing, the signal dropped. When he returned, the object was gone. There are also records of space maps released by private agencies, maps that show areas of orbit marked with restrictions, zones that do not appear in NASA's public systems. Some of these areas coincide with the times of transmission failures. Coincidence or censorship disguised as technical protocol? And we cannot forget the role of the press, or rather, its absence. Why don't major media outlets cover these findings? Why do we never see these leaks discussed on science programs or in the Sunday newspapers? The answer may lie in the financing itself. NASA, although it is a government agency, works in partnership with private companies that have million-dollar contracts with communication networks and technology giants. Maintaining the clean image of space exploration is essential to guarantee investments, public trust, and geopolitical stability. Any hint of covert military operations in space could create a domino effect of panic, distrust, and instability, something governments are simply not willing to risk. All of this leads us to an inevitable question: why hide a military base in space? If the intention was to defend against terrestrial threats, wouldn't it be more effective to keep these structures on the ground? Why such high investment in secret orbital platforms? What are you watching? What are they building so far from the human gaze? There is a base. There are records. There are shadows in the skies that do not appear in school books. And the more you research, the more you realize that the lack of answers is, in itself, a glaring answer. Comment below if you've seen any of these cut NASA broadcasts. Have you ever witnessed any suspicious images coming from space? Leave your opinion here, right in the comments. I saw the image that disappeared. Or there's something hidden above us. This helps the video reach more people. And most importantly, keep alive the investigation that they want to bury in silence. As we delve deeper into this increasingly unsettling mystery, we begin to find not just visual evidence or technical documents, but also testimonies, reports coming directly from people who have worked for years behind the scenes of space exploration. Engineers, scientists, military personnel, satellite analysts, all with one thing in common: access to the kind of information that the average public will never see. And the most intriguing thing is that many of these reports come to light anonymously, protected by code names or in secret forums, as if these people knew that, by revealing any fragment of what they experienced, they would be taking real risks. One of the most shocking reports came from a former NASA imagery analyst who worked on orbital analysis projects for nearly 2 decades. In his statement, he claims to have seen more than once fixed, symmetrical structures that are impossible to classify as space debris or conventional satellites. According to him, these structures were located on a trajectory outside the usual orbit line of known missions. When he reported this to his direct supervisor, he was immediately transferred to another sector without explanation. And months later, his contract was terminated due to cost reduction. Another former employee of a NASA outsourced contractor involved in telecommunications and tracking projects described in a cybersecurity forum an episode he witnessed in 2014 during a routine scan of the International Space Station's communications channels. He picked up a sequence of encrypted signals coming from an unregistered source. The most curious thing is that the signals were being transmitted from an orbital zone with no registered satellites. When he reported this, he was instructed to delete the record and never speak about the matter again. Many of these testimonies are accompanied by technical details that could only come from someone with real knowledge about the inner workings of space operations. Terms such as geostationary orbit, maneuver vectors, data blackout, and operational quiet zones come up frequently. And the scary thing is that these people are not selling books. They are not seeking fame. Most of the time, they disappear from the internet shortly after making their statements, as if they knew that every word said brings unpredictable consequences. We also have the case of a retired United States Air Force colonel who, in an interview published only once before being mysteriously deleted from the web, said the following: "In 2002, I participated in a joint mission with NASA to monitor orbital activity above the South Pacific region. We identified a huge, immobile metallic structure with reflections impossible to be generated by any known material used in satellites. When we reported this, we were told that we were seeing an atmospheric anomaly and were forced to sign an immediate confidentiality agreement. The original recording disappeared, but the transcription was preserved by attentive users and is circulating today on specialized forums." Many of these complaints speak of the existence of secret international treaties, agreements that do not appear in any public document, but which would be responsible for keeping the existence of these military bases outside of Earth under absolute secrecy. These agreements would involve not only agencies like NASA, but also intelligence bodies like the CIA, NSA, and international agencies like Roscosmos and the Chinese Space Agency. The goal: maintain global stability and avoid a possible collapse in public trust in space institutions. But what makes everything even more enigmatic is the lack of categorical denials from NASA. When officially questioned about these rumors, the agency usually responds with generic phrases such as "we do not comment on speculation," or "all missions are conducted with complete transparency." This, in itself, is already a powerful indication. Because if there really was nothing to hide, why not directly refute, with evidence and transparency, the allegations that keep coming up year after year? There are also a surprising number of unmanned missions that simply never had their objectives disclosed to the public. Many of these missions disappeared from official records, and others, even after their return to Earth, had their data classified as classified for national security reasons. An example is the mysterious ship X-37B, an unmanned space vehicle operated by the U.S. Air Force, which spent more than 2 years in orbit on a mission whose purpose was never revealed. There are those who say that she was part of a direct experiment with this supposed secret military base in space, and there are still reports from amateur astronomers, yes, ordinary people with their own observation equipment, who claim to have recorded static objects in full orbital movement. Structures that remain in the same spot for weeks, even at altitudes where gravity should drag them. Some of these records were sent to observatories, but simply disappeared after evaluation. Astronomers never received an answer. As you begin to connect these accounts, you realize that they fit together like pieces of a sinister puzzle. They are not loose stories without logic. They are fragments of a reality that is being carefully kept out of reach. And the more you study, the more you understand that the problem isn't a lack of evidence. It's an excess of carefully ignored coincidences. So, if you've made it this far, I want you to comment on 2 things. First, right? I believe there is something above the Earth that has not been revealed. This helps the algorithm understand that this video deserves to be delivered to more people. Second, if you have already read or heard any of the stories I mentioned, or even if you know other similar stories, comment here too. There's more than they're saying. Your interaction here is not just engagement, it is part of resistance. A resistance against the erasure of truth. And it's at this point that everything starts to get even more disconcerting. Because as much as the reports and testimonies make an impact, they are the visual evidence that transform doubt into real concern. We are talking about images. Images that were never shown on official channels, but were leaked. Captures taken by independent astronomers. Negative analyses of NASA's own transmissions. Files posted on secret forums that disappeared hours after being published, as if someone was sweeping away everything. That contradicts the established narrative. One of the most controversial images emerged in 2017. An anonymous user on a space research forum posted a sequence of screenshots from orbital tracking software. In the images, a gigantic object appears positioned in an area between the Earth and the Moon at a gravitational equilibrium point known as the Lagrange point. The problem? There was absolutely no official record of any mission or equipment at that point in the period analyzed. The user claimed that, when trying to search for more information, he was disconnected from the server and his IP was permanently blocked. The image disappeared in less than 48 hours, but as always happens in these cases, some attentive users made copies. And today, they circulate as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of contemporary space observation. There are also records made by high-precision cameras during solar eclipses, moments when sensors capture much more than visible light. In these images, when contrast and infrared filters are applied, symmetrical, almost geometric shapes appear, hovering over the Earth's surface. Shapes that don't move like satellites, that don't follow the same predictable routes, and that simply shouldn't be there. NASA, when confronted, limited itself to saying that these were visual artifacts caused by refraction. But independent experts refuted this explanation, pointing out that the consistency of the shape at different capture angles indicated a real structure, and not an optical error. A Canadian researcher specializing in astronomical image analysis published a video showing the comparison between public orbital maps and frames captured in long-exposure observations. The result was frightening. There were at least 2 objects orbiting at low altitude that were not included in any official NASA ESA or Roscosmos database. And most impressively, they moved synchronously, as if they were connected or operating together. Exactly the kind of pattern one would expect from a base divided into modules, or a larger structure with movable subdivisions. And what about the leaked videos? Some of the most controversial excerpts came directly from live broadcasts from the International Space Station. On at least 4 occasions documented by Internet users, large objects appear in the background of the recordings. They don't twinkle like stars, they don't move like ordinary satellites, and above all, they are too regular in shape to be space debris. One of these videos, recorded in 2020, clearly shows a triangular-shaped structure with red lights at the ends, floating for more than 12 seconds before the image is cut abruptly with the famous warning: "Signal lost. Reconnecting." Coincidence or cover-up? A sequence of images posted by a group of independent scientists in Germany revealed an even stranger pattern. There are regions of space that appear blurred or pixelated on public maps, as if something was being purposely hidden. When questioned, the responsible bodies alleged mapping failures. But these failures are always repeated at the same points on different platforms with different providers. This in itself should already raise a red alert in any remotely attentive person. There is also a lesser-known collection, maintained by a group of enthusiasts called Project Disclosure Archive. They catalog radar prints and visual records of anomalies detected by civilian telescopes. In many of these files, there are traces of movements in uninhabited areas of Earth's orbit. Traces that appear for a few hours and then disappear without a trace. One of the project coordinators even stated that these movements coincide with the dates on which certain countries launched unmanned rockets on test missions. However, none of these launches appear on the official calendars. What were What were they taking to refuel? One of the most intriguing pieces of evidence was analyzed by an expert in CGI and digital forensic editing. He took an official NASA video, published on its institutional channel, and analyzed the frozen frames with increased resolution. The result was surprising. In a fraction of a second, a shape appeared in the upper left corner that, when enlarged and adjusted, resembled the structure of a hangar with metal walls and side towers. All this floating above the stratosphere at a point where, officially, there is absolutely nothing. The behavior pattern of these images is always the same. They appear, circulate quickly among groups that study the space, are reported as fake, by official channels, disappear from servers, or have their links broken. And then, silence. But what doesn't go away is the impact. Because once you see something you can't explain, something that doesn't fit NASA's official narrative, something that contradicts public records, you never look at the sky the same way again. This visual evidence, no matter how much it is ignored or denied, exists. They are spread across the internet in the files of those who resist, in the backups of those who save before it disappears. They are proof that there is something more up there, something that is not in the books, nor in the polite interviews with space agency spokespeople, something that could be a structure, a base, an orbital scale project. Conducted away from the public eye. Comment here if you've seen any of these images. Remember any cut transmission from the ISS, or if you've ever had access to files that disappeared from the air. He writes, I saw the image before it disappeared, or they are hiding something that was right there. And if you want to reinforce this movement, also write, the truth is above us. Your participation is more than important. It keeps this investigation alive. Despite the growing amount of leaked images, statements and files circulating all over the internet, often before being quickly taken down, NASA's official position remains virtually unchanged. They deny, silence, or ignore. Whenever more serious questions arise in interviews, press conferences, or open sessions with mission directors, the answer is standard, cold, controlled. There is no evidence of secret military activities conducted by us, or, alternatively, the classic, we do not comment on conspiracy theories, but it is exactly this excessively formal stance that raises even more doubts. If NASA really has nothing to hide, why doesn't it present hard evidence, raw images, tracking records, or public reports that eliminate any suspicion? Why do they simply avoid any deeper debate about these cropped images, about the synchronized glitches in the live feeds, about the unidentified objects captured by independent cameras? The lack of a direct answer says a lot. And when there is an answer, it comes wrapped in technical terms, scientific jargon, and explanations that sound more like smokescreens than real clarifications. A recent example was when the agency was questioned about triangular objects captured during a transmission from the International Space Station. The official response was, we are analyzing atmospheric data that may have generated optical artifacts in the camera lens. Optical artifacts. The same argument has been used dozens of times whenever an image that deviates from the script appears. The pattern is repeated as if it were already ready, previously programmed to enter the scene whenever reality escapes narrative control. Now, what makes everything even more curious or worrying is that this same NASA, which is against any possibility of a military base in space, has already had internal documents leaked with mention of orbital security infrastructure and uncatalogued fixed structures. These terms appeared in technical files obtained through FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, which is the Access to Information Act in the United States. The language used is purposefully vague, but even so, it carries enormous weight. After all, what does an orbital security infrastructure mean if not something built for defensive purposes in space? Furthermore, There are records of contracts signed between NASA and private companies to develop high-endurance autonomous logistics modules. In theory, they would be used for long-term testing in extreme environments. But the question is, why were these modules never integrated into public missions? Why did the launches related to these contracts occur in the early hours of the morning, without broadcast, and were labeled only as secondary technical missions? When you start following the money trail, what you find are billions of dollars being allocated to projects that do not appear on the NASA website, nor in official channels, nor in press conferences. There are also collaborations between NASA and the United States Department of Defense that have never been widely publicized. Internal memos mention sharing sensitive data, joint orbital tracking, and technical support for analyzing structural anomalies in an extraterrestrial environment. All of this without any explanation to the population. This lack of transparency in itself is already a way of denying access to the truth. And if the truth cannot be shared, it is because it is either too compromising, or it simply does not fit within the comfortable narrative that one wants to maintain. And don't think this is recent. Since the time of the Apollo 17 mission, there have been records of information omitted from the final reports. Some images captured on the moon were archived without ever being published. Civilian scientists who participated in the data analysis complained of unexplained gaps in return reports. One of them claimed that there were entire sequences of sensor readings that were replaced with codes that no one on the external team could decipher. When they asked NASA, the answer was, classified for strategic reasons. How can we trust an agency that claims to be scientific, but at the same time allows itself to hide data under the cloak of military strategy? How can we accept that an organization created to explore the cosmos and share knowledge with humanity keeps entire parts of its work under eternal secrecy? Isn't it strange that the same NASA that proudly shows off every photo of a new rover on Mars avoids talking about certain Earth orbital zones at all costs? Meanwhile, data continues to disappear. Questions remain unanswered, and independent analysts are ridiculed as conspiracists, even when they present evidence, documents, and technical analyses. There is a deliberate effort to silence those who point the finger, and the more these efforts grow, the more the idea that something is, in fact, being carefully hidden is reinforced. If you've come this far and feel that this story needs to be exposed, comment below. NASA is not telling everything, or I want to see the raw data. And if you've noticed this pattern of selective silence coming from NASA, type. They avoid the subject because they know too much. This helps this video stay alive, because when the truth bothers, the first attempt is always to make it disappear. If we stop to reflect for a moment and seriously consider the possibility that all of this is real, the secret military base, the classified documents, the deleted images, intercepted signals, the agreements between space agencies and armed forces, an inevitable question arises. What does this really mean for humanity? Why would anyone be building or maintaining a military structure in space? And even more so, why so much effort in hiding this from the population? We are talking about a gigantic operation involving billions in investments, very advanced technology, uncatalogued missions, space vehicles that have never been officially presented, and an architecture of secrecy that goes far beyond military protocols. None of this would be done by chance. Maintaining a structure of this size outside of Earth without public knowledge requires not only cutting-edge technology, but also a very strong reason. And this reason is what scares the most. Are they preparing for a possible imminent space conflict? It is difficult to believe that in the 21st century, humanity is just peacefully exploring the cosmos when there are hidden missions, orbital censorship zones, and documents talking about extraterrestrial defense. If there is defense, there is a threat. The question is, where does this threat come from? Was it a precaution against other earthly powers? Or would it be something much bigger coming from outside our planet? Some theories point to the possibility that these structures are being built to monitor possible alien threats. This would explain the haste, secrecy, and silent international cooperation. And if that's true, if NASA and other government bodies know something that isn't being shared, it completely changes the way we view the modern history of space exploration. Maybe the Apollo program wasn't just about getting to the moon, but about assessing whether there was something there. Perhaps the creation of the United States Space Force was not just a political move, but a response to something much more urgent. Now imagine the implications of this in our everyday lives. If there really is an external threat, or if we are facing a global surveillance structure outside the planet, we as humanity have not been informed. And we're not talking about a small secret. We are talking about something that could impact the destiny of the Earth as we know it. A structure outside Earth's orbit is not just a base. It is a symbol of absolute power, total control. Whoever dominates space, dominates communication, dominates the climate, dominates satellites, dominates everything. If this base really exists and is armed, as several documents and reports suggest, then we are facing a kind of invisible weapon positioned where no one can reach it, protected by international laws of silence and camouflaged under the pretext of science. It is there, above our heads, orbiting in silence, monitoring, perhaps even deciding, from a distance, the future of entire nations. It's a kind of power that you can't see, but you can feel it. That doesn't appear in the headlines, but that influences geopolitical, economic, and technological decisions down here. This leads us to a deeper question. Who is in control of all this? Who decides what can and cannot be revealed? Who operates this possible military base outside of Earth? Are we talking about governments? Of secret alliances between nations? From private corporations with interplanetary reach? Or have we already passed that point and are now dealing with something we don't even fully understand? If you, like me, feel that there is something wrong being kept silent, something too big to be just a coincidence, comment below. We are being watched from space, or the truth is up there, hidden. And if you think that this space could be linked to something bigger than human conflicts, something that involves the future of our species, write in the comments. What do they know and don't tell you? Your voice may seem small, but it helps get this video where it needs to go. At this point, after everything that has been exposed, the leaks, reports, the transmission cuts, the hidden images, the suspicious contracts, and NASA's evasive stance, the question that keeps hammering in the minds of those who really pay attention is inevitable. How much longer will they be able to hide this from humanity? Because yes, something is being hidden. Something big, complex, expensive, and very well articulated above us. And the only reason this hasn't officially come to light yet is because they still have control over the narrative. But until when? That's why videos like this exist. Because here, unlike traditional channels, you have space to think, question, investigate. Here, you are not treated as a passive spectator. You are part of something bigger. You are part of a community that is opening its eyes, that is connecting dots, that is realizing that the sky can hold more than stars. The truth is hidden above us, but it's getting harder and harder to disguise. If this video moved you in any way, if at any point you felt that feeling that something is really wrong up there, then this channel is your place. Here, we do not accept ready-made versions. We investigate, question, connect the dots, even when they try to hide the pieces. So subscribe to the channel now. Activate the bell and come be part of this community that is waking up to what is really happening above our heads. Here, you are not just another spectator. You are part of the investigation. And if you made it to the end, comment below. I saw it to the end because I need to know the truth. This comment shows that you are committed to the search and helps this video reach more people who are also ready to open their eyes. Let's go together. The truth is up there, and it won't hide forever. And now that all this has come to light, an inevitable question arises. How was this information so well covered up for so long? In the next video, we will expose a direct connection between what NASA shows and what Hollywood helps to build. NASA x Hollywood. How far does image manipulation go? What you see, is that really what happened?